Very good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Nikhil Vaswani, and I'm a junior consultant at Turner& Townsend. Today, we are kindly joined by Dr. Richard Miller from Miller Klein Associates Limited. The purpose of this event is a retrofit information support and expertise event, which is fully funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, and is delivered by Turner & Townsend. I will hand over to Dr. Richard to start today's presentation. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. So, good afternoon, everybody. This masterclass is about building your business case and project plan. And when I use that term, business case and project plan, I'm not talking about any specific formats that you may have to use in setting up and managing your projects, but rather the argument you build for your project and the information you need to gather. So this is based on my experience over many years of both writing and reviewing and assessing business cases and project plans, and also what we have learned from previous parts of this program, the Social Housing Retrofit Accelerator, different sources of funding. We've learned a lot about where the problems are, where the difficulties may be. So that's the focus for today. And we're going to do it in two sections. So first of all, I'll talk about the challenge of buying and alignment, why you need that business case and plan, talk about a framework that we've found useful for the business case, and then we'll go in and do a deep dive on some of the topics that we know cause problems. Making sure you have strategic alignment in the organization, being able to assess the benefits, looking at the costing of a project, the resources that you will need, and particularly risk management, which is a problem I see over and over again. Then we'll do a wrap up. So first of all, why do we need to develop a business case and a project plan and keep them up to date? A lot of people think about these things as being kind of one and done. You've got the business case, you get project approval, that's it, you're great. Everything just flows from that. You need it because it's not just a case of getting overall project approval once from the people with the money, from your management team. You need to get all of the different stakeholders involved and supportive, and you need to keep them informed throughout the project. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make with this exercise of being clear what the business case, what the argument is they think it's once and done. And this is the shape of a typical retrofit project. This comes from the project overview toolkit that's on the website. And at a high level, these are the things you must do. And it's complicated. You've got the preparation phase, the delivery phase, actions post-retrofit. You've got compliance with PAS 2035, and within that, PAS 2030, the best standards for doing this kind of work, and all these other activities that you have to do. You need the commitment of a lot of different stakeholder groups in order to deliver a successful project. You need obviously support from your organization's leadership team because they're the people who can commit the resources to your project. You also need finance. It may come internally or it may come from external sources. You need the help of other teams in your organization, and they're probably already busy. You need to persuade them that this project needs their attention and support. Your suppliers and contractors, you may be asking them to work in new ways and deliver new solutions. You've got to sell this to them. You've got to engage them and bring them into the project. And the tenants and the local community also need to support you. They need to see the benefits as well. The problem that typically happens is you get what I call the centrifugal forces in a project. As people get into their tasks, they're clear what they're doing, work starts getting divided up, the individual teams get their heads down, focus on delivering their bit, and stop paying attention to the rest of the project. And so groups and individuals start spinning off in all directions. And I personally worked in projects where about 3/4 of the way through, we had a major problem bringing everybody back together again because people had made practical decisions on their part of the program without thinking about the impacts elsewhere. And you get this spinning apart. You've got to constantly keep people together, keep them aligned, and all pulling in the same direction. And of course, the route to that is communications. Communication, communication, communication. And your business plan, your business case can be a key component in supporting that communication if you do it right. So the business case has two clear purposes: to persuade all the stakeholder groups that this is the worthwhile project they need to support and get engaged in, and then to help deliver the project. So a good business case should help all the key stakeholders to understand, influence, and shape the project. It's not something ideally you want to be doing in a darkened room with a wet towel wrapped around your head, just thinking the difficult thoughts. This is about bringing everybody together. It should enable the decision makers to be aware of the costs, the benefits, and of course the risks of the project. And it should make crystal clear the purpose of the project. It can demonstrate to stakeholders the implications and that you've thought them through. You've considered what is going to happen, where the risks are, what might happen, how you might manage that. And it will be your guiding star throughout the project, a basis for managing the project and for monitoring and evaluating progress. And it will help you to tell a compelling story for your project. But a good business case is also very definitely not some things. It's not a mechanical process that provides a definitive answer. It's not an exhaustive list of all the questions and issues. Things will crop up during the project that will need to be faced and dealt with. It's not a static document. I see so many business cases and business plans that are essentially done and then frozen, that everyone is surprised when it didn't quite work out like that. It's not static. It changes and evolves throughout the planning of the project and during delivery. And it should never be a substitute for active discussion. This is not, again, something which is done by one person or a small team and then that's simply given to everybody else. This must support that active discussion. So working with Turner and Townsend, with other people, we've developed a practical model for how you assemble the information you need. This will help you to collect all the key information in one place. It will allow you to spot areas of weakness in your argument or missing data. It should help you to adapt quickly to changing circumstances and help you communicate the project to others. And what it will also help is for you to understand your own project. It's very easy for people to start to believe that their project is actually something different from what it really is on the ground. So getting under the hood of your own project is a valuable part of this process. And again, there are things it will not do. It won't write a pitch document for you. It won't fill in an application form. It won't secure stakeholder commitment, and it won't project manage for you. Those are all things you're going to have to do, but this information and this model of how you assemble that information will help you to do all of those things. So the business case needs to answer three questions. What is the project? Why is it important? And how are you going to deliver it? And this is our model. This is the framework we use to collect everything together. Quite a lot of items here, but just to run through them. The outcome of the project is what's going to happen. So this project will enable us, in this project, we will retrofit 100 properties from EPC D to EPC B, or whatever it happens to be. The benefits. So what are the benefits of the project? Who gets the benefits? What are the benefits? How do we valorize them? What numbers do we give to them? What are we going to do in the project? What are the actions we need to undertake? So we are going to retrofit these homes, and we're going to do it using a combination of external wall insulation and replacing all the windows, or whatever it happens to be, or reinsulating the roof, or replacing the roof with PV, or whatever the solution is. And then your delivery plan is obviously, okay, and timetable looks like this. We're going to get it done in 18 months' time. Here are some of the key milestones we expect to meet. Obviously, what is it going to cost? Where is that money going to come from? What resources do you need to actually deliver the project? Where are they going to come from? Are they internal? Are they external? Are they in the supply chain? Are you going to have to do recruiting? Whatever. And the procurement. What is your procurement strategy? How are you going to go about buying the stuff and the resources that you need? And all that fits within a framework of strategic purpose. What is the strategic purpose that this supports? So my organization has identified that we've got a real problem with poor quality homes and poor health outcomes as a result of that. We want to fix that. That's our strategic goal in the organization. As part of being a good citizen, that's what we want to do. So fitting the project to the strategic purpose. And then risk management. Right? What are the risks? What are we going to do about them? So those are the elements, and we'll go into some more detail a bit later on in the second half about some of these areas that cause specific problems. Those are the elements. And you can use this framework as a communication tool as well as a memoir to the things that you need to do. You can put a few key words in each box to pick out the most important information. I've seen that done very successfully, because then it becomes one page. It's a one-page summary of everything that's absolutely vital in the project. You can color code the boxes. So you can use that to say, well, are we on time? Are we moving forward the way we expected? Are we experiencing delays in one particular area? What does that mean for the project? So I've seen, again, people use something like this and red, amber, green color code it as a way of keeping people informed. Okay, we're generally okay, but we've got a cost issue that needs sorting out. So you can do that as well. And the other critical thing about this framework is to understand that it is not a linear process. You don't start with the resources and argue from left to right. You don't start with the outcome and argue logically from right to left. Information dribbles in at different times, and actually each box affects the others. You may find that you've got a very clear outcome that fits very, very well with the strategic thrust of the organization. The benefits are going to be fantastic. You understand how to do it. What actions you're going to have to take? It's too expensive. Or, yes, I can do that, but I just can't meet the timetable that's expected. And so you have to change the plan. So it's not a linear process. It's a bit more like a painting where you're kind of coloring in some bits and then saying, oh, don't like that, scraping out, changing it, putting something else, and it gradually comes into focus. It's an evolving description of the project. And the outcomes, benefits, and the actions cover what is in the project. So what's the project going to deliver? We're going to do this many homes to this standard. That means that we are going to simplify our process for managing those properties. We're going to be able to cut some of the costs out, be more efficient. And to do that, we're going to do this external wall insulation and change the roof or whatever. So that's all about what the project will deliver. The strategic purpose covers the why. How does this project meet the needs of the organization? Where does it fit in within the overall strategy? And particularly, why should your leadership team pick this project rather than another project? And this is one that we'll dive into a bit more detail in the second half. And then the other sections, the delivery plan, the costs, the financing, resource requirements, procurement strategy, and risk management, they're all about how you plan to deliver the project objectives. The website has a toolkit on this, which allows you to go into a bit more detail about how the model works and gives more access to external resources that help you with each of these areas. But that's the framework. And as I said, in the second half, we'll dive into a few more details on some of those. And what I'd like to do now is focus in on some areas that we know historically from other projects and programs, areas that cause the most problems in thinking through this plan. So the first is the strategic purpose. Why does the project matter? It's got to matter to your organization. Sometimes the reason it matters to your organization is because you think you can get co-funding from another source to help you with it. Sometimes it's because you have a plan to upgrade the stock anyway. But look at the strategy. Look at the published strategy of your organization. Has your organization declared a climate emergency? Has it made a commitment to net zero? Or is it just depending on the Climate Change Act and the fact that ultimately it's going to have to do this? Is the strategy around economic growth? Are you dealing with an aging population? Are there issues of exclusion and poor health within the group that you're serving, within your tenants? Does your organization have a plan to deliver any of these objectives? What public statements have been made about policy and direction? Because the core question is, how does your project align with the strategy? If your organization says, these are the things which we promise to deliver over the next 5 years, it makes it much easier if you can come with your argument that says, you said you wanted to do these things. Well, this is how I can help you get there. This is how we can help you deliver. And not linking, having it project stand alone and not linked back to the strategic purpose is one of the flaws you often see in arguments for projects, in the business case for a project. It's kind of, yeah, it's really interesting. It might be profitable, might have all kinds of benefits, but it's not in the top 3 items we're most concerned about. So connecting it with the organizational strategy is important because it makes it much easier for people to buy into it. Benefits is another one which can be a real problem. People can often be quite clear about the outcome. We're going to take 100 properties from average EPC D to EPC B. Terrific. So what's the benefit? What is the benefit and who gets that benefit? And those benefits can be kind of direct and indirect. So the benefits can be to the organization, cost reductions, increased revenue, or delivery of social and environmental targets. There can be benefits to other organizations. For example, lower healthcare costs or a reduction in fuel poverty. And there can be benefits to wider society, including the residents, reduce energy bills or increased economic activity in the area. The benefits can also be direct cash benefits, so there could be reductions in operating costs or increases in revenue streams. They can be direct non-cash benefits, so redeployment of existing resources or improved efficiency, which means that your organizational resource and money goes further. There can be quantitative spillover benefits, so new economic activity, new jobs, making the area more economically active, reducing economic inactivity, making it more attractive. And they can be qualitative spillover benefits, improved sense of pride in the community. And these are all things that it's hard to be definite about, but at the very least you can kind of brainstorm and say, well, what are the benefits? What are the benefits to our organization? If we do this right, is it going to mean our repairs and maintenance bill comes down in the future? If we do this right, does this mean that our tenants will have lower energy bills? If we do this right, will we create 10 apprenticeships in the locality? Those kinds of questions. So listing them down, thinking about what the benefit might be, who benefits, and then trying to think through, can we quantify this in any way or assign a value to it? For example, there's really good statistics on the cost to the National Health Service of poor housing. So if people are cold in houses, fuel poverty, things like that, or the housing is not of great quality, or there's any damp problems, things like that, mold, there are actual numbers you can point to that says this is what that kind of problem costs the National Health Service every year. Now, of course, if the benefits are outside your particular organization, it's a little bit harder to make the argument, but at least you can point to it and say, look, we can claim that we are helping society. We can show that we are improving things for our tenants and the community around them. So benefits is often a thing that kind of gets glossed over, but it's really important. And as I said, just brainstorming it, going through it, thinking about what the issues are, what could be a benefit, who it accrues to, and then trying to think about how you might quantify it is a really important part of the process. Costs are always a tricky one because the costs of the project are defined by what actions you're going to take, what action you're going to deliver in the project, the delivery plan, how you're going to go about it, and the resources required to deliver the project. And typically, you're going to have to make an early estimate of the likely costs. And this is one area that often causes problems. Where can you get the information from? What approach can you use? So there are various approaches, some of which are gone into in detail in the toolkit. You may have experience from different previous projects. You may have a pretty good idea what it's going to cost to upgrade a property of that housing archetype. The supply chain and suppliers may be able to tell you, well, if you're going to do this, we would reckon it's going to cost like this. For quite a lot of work, there are published collections of information you can dip into. And if you are using PAS 2035, then there's a kind of modeling process built into that helps you to assess what the likely retrofit costs are going to be. The important thing, I guess, with the costs is whatever number you reach is not to believe it, because it's probably going to be a different number. But doing your best to work out as early as you can how realistic the costs are, what are they likely to be, how are you going to finance them, and then thinking through the implications on the actions you might be able to take, the things you might be able to do, and how that affects the outcome and benefits. So you kind of got a plan B and a plan C to go with your initial plan if the costs turn out to be different. But it's one that people shy away from and often tend to kind of grab a number out of thin air or try and use the same number they used last time, or perhaps worst of all, choose a number they think they can get away with. And I've seen that done far too many times. And the resources that you need, particularly the people resources. Again, we're working in a different way compared to the conventional repairs and maintenance and routine work on the properties. So you need a different set of skills. You may require new kinds of individuals. So what roles have you got for this project? Any special skills required for those roles? Can you identify the responsible individual and maybe seek their advice? If it's a team, can you identify the team leader or the person accountable for that team and find out what they think it's going to cost? And then look at the resource gaps. Show the people you haven't got, the skills you haven't got. You haven't got the capacity because everyone's busy already, and how you plan to bridge that gap and supply the capacity. So there are basically only three options. You can train existing staff and add to their existing capability, but also workload. You can recruit additional staff, or you can outsource the task to somebody else. And again, there's a toolkit on skills and team development that can help you to list the roles, identify the skills, make sure you've got them, and then go through the process of saying, can I put a name against that particular activity? And if not, what am I going to do? What are my options? And what's the best option for me? So I'm very conscious that quite a lot of you, particularly in smaller organizations, you may be the person who's got this project and there really isn't anybody else allocated to the project. You're going to have to figure out how to do it. So again, checking out the skills that are required, the capabilities and capacity that's required, where are you going to get it from? And maybe checking out with those other departments in particular that they can deliver what you need them to deliver. And then the last one I want to pick out is risk management and the risk register. I picked this out for special attention because it is very rarely well done. And in the literally hundreds and hundreds of project arguments and applications that I have read through, almost all of them have included a risk assessment, a risk register, talked about the risk management process, and probably over 95% of those risk assessments and registers are completely useless. This is a really important part of the process. It's a picture of where the project is at any point in time. And also critically, it will change as the project evolves. Some risk issues will be dealt with, some will fade away, some will increase in importance, and new problems will be discovered. So this whole process of getting the risk register right is very, very important. It's also an incredibly powerful communication tool. Organizations that do this well, you'll often see the updated risk register as a key part of the drumbeat of communication across the team, particularly important when you're dealing with multiple departments and with the supply chain as well. So a little bit about how you might go about it. You think about risks in two dimensions. What is the probability of the event happening? Is it low or high? And what is the impact on the project if it does happen? Is it low or high? So that then kind of divides into the space into four simple quadrants. The top right quadrant are risk events that are quite likely to happen. And if they do, they will be very bad for the project. These are your high priority risks. You want to make sure you've figured out what those ones are and you have got a mitigation plan in place. If it happens, what are we going to do? What can we do to prevent it happening? Top left and bottom right are high probability and low impact, or low probability and high impact. These are lower priority, particularly the low probability, high impact ones can still turn around and bite you. But in general, you don't have to give them quite as much attention as you do the higher impact, high probability. So good monitoring and mitigation plan, making sure someone's keeping an eye on it, but it doesn't require the attention and focus that the high impact, high probability risks do. And then the bottom left quadrant, low probability and low impact. You might not want to ignore them, but you're going to be checking on these less frequently. They're less of a worry. And what you're always trying to do with your planning is push down the probability of a risk and push down the impact. So your mitigation strategies are looking at what can we do to make it less likely to happen, and or what can we do to make sure that if it does happen, it doesn't have quite the impact we fear. And there are many types of risks. that affect this kind of project? Technical risks. Will the solutions we come up with actually work? Commercial. Can we deliver the benefits expected at the price predicted? Financial. Can we secure the money needed for the project? Are there any legal risks or events that could damage our reputation? Could disgruntled stakeholders disrupt the project? Are there regulatory barriers we haven't thought about? Could something go wrong in the project delivery? And once a project is completed, will it deliver the expected performance? So what you should do is, taking these types of risks and other risks, is brainstorm what could go wrong. Involve as many different project partners and teams as possible to get the different perspectives and try and think of everything. Go wide. And again, this is an argument for not trying to do this with one person in a darkened room with a wet towel wrapped around their head. This is a collective activity. This is using all the knowledge and expertise of your procurement team, your housing team, your tenant engagement team, the tenants, the supply chain, using them to think this through. And once you have your big collection of risks, you can start sorting them by probability and impact. So people will label the risk. They maybe go high, high. You can give that a numerical score if you want to, or just say, no, this is important. This is a red risk. Mitigation. So what are you going to do about it? What actions could you take? And then critical. This is the column that everybody forgets. So who is responsible for worrying about that? Who is going to action that mitigation plan? And again, I've seen plenty of risk registers that have, go into reasonable detail about risk probability and impact and what the mitigation plan is, but no one's assigned to do it. And if no one's assigned to do it, does the mitigation plan actually exist? It's worth spending time on this. Because once you've got it right, it's updating after that. And when thinking through the potential impacts, it's important to look beyond the direct impacts on the specific task. What about consequential impacts? How could it affect other parts of the project? It's like a racing car crashing. A failure of one component, they have a tire failure, changes the handling and steering, causes the car to hit a barrier, damaging more parts and so on. And all of a sudden, you've got a wreckage strewn across the racetrack. It's a cascade failure. And again, people with their eyes down, focusing on their particular part of the problem, their particular part of the project, may not spot these. So again, in doing the risk register, thinking about, well, if that happens, not only do we miss our key milestone on delivering on time, actually, that means we're going to have to push back doing this installation. And that means we're going to have to pay more to get it done, or whatever it happens to be. So thinking about those consequential impacts and these cascade failures, because what you may then find is something which looks not particularly significant can actually have this cascade effect and really wreck the project. So this is a risk starter for 10, an initial group of 10 risks relevant to large-scale retrofit projects. It's not exhaustive, and you'll have to think hard about the specifics of your own project and your own situation. But it is a powerful communication and alignment tool, getting these down, getting a risk register sorted out, identifying who's accountable, and then using that to update people on how the project is going. So getting approvals, internal approvals, planning approvals, utilities, highways, basic project management, budget, timing, procurement, governance issues. How's decision-making going to work? What about management of funds? What about the risk of fraud? Supply chain, materials, manpower, skills. Will they be the right quantity at the right time at the right place? People, residents, neighbours, leaseholders. Right to buy properties mixed in. If you're trying to do an entire street or a block and you've got a couple of right to buy properties mixed in with that, pepper potted into your stock, how are you going to manage that? Risks on the design. Will it cost what you expect? Will you get the performance you expect? What about the risks of ventilation and damp? Plenty of projects have done their insulation in a way that creates ventilation and damp problems. Very easy to do if you don't think things through, if you don't follow PAS 2035 and think about how different interventions interact. Installation, supposing one of your contractors doesn't put things in correctly. Incorrect installation, QC activities, rework. Handover, communication, snagging, resident awareness. If the residents don't understand that this property has been upgraded and may operate in a slightly different way to the way they're used to, then you can have problems. I have seen projects where residents being switched to heat pumps, but a heat pump is very different to a gas boiler. It operates in a different way. The timings, when you use it, how you use it, the intensiveness with which you use it doesn't come on and off like a gas boiler does. And so people complain they're cold because they're not using the heat pump correctly, or they overheat. And I've seen well-insulated properties supplied with heat pumps that have the windows open in the middle of winter because the residents have changed the controls, so it's now operating where it shouldn't be, and they're not getting the result they want. And it's not their fault. Right? Very often we do not tell residents how to use the property when it changes, and then monitoring the parts after the physical installation, checking it's working okay. Can you get access? Is there a performance gap? What are you going to do about it? Is there user satisfaction? Back to the resident awareness question. So this is just some examples of some of the things you can think through as part of the risk management. So those are some of the areas of that template I showed you, which generally tend to cause problems more frequently than the other areas. And again, as I said, in the toolkit, you can find connections to other resources that can help you to tackle those issues. So wrapping it all up, a good business plan will help all stakeholders understand and influence the project, help you get buy-in and keep everyone aligned, allow you to stress test your project, be a checklist. So have I forgotten anything important? Again, I've seen projects develop where people haven't given a thought to the resources, just assumed that they will be available somehow. It will be an important communications tool. You update it, you keep using it all the time to tell the story of your project. It will help you to truly understand your project and the risks involved in it. It will evolve. It's not linear, it's not static. It won't be right first time. It needs to evolve. And it won't produce a definitive answer through a mechanical process. This is not a question of filling in the boxes and, hey, there's my case, just print it off and send it to whoever needs to approve it. It will be a living document, not file and forget. And it must never be a substitute for active discussion within the team. It is the springboard for that discussion, not a replacement for it.